The morning sky over Seoul burned red, not from the sunrise but from fire. Admiral Daewon Kim stood at the command center window and watched his city die. The Vraxian warships hung in the atmosphere like metal vultures, their weapons turning buildings into dust. He had been drinking tea when the first strike hit. Now his cup lay shattered on the floor just like everything else. The aliens had come without warning. No message, no demands, just death from the sky. Tokyo went silent first, then New York, London, Beijing. Every major city on Earth was burning. The news channels showed the same horror everywhere. Screaming people running through streets while alien fire rained down, buildings collapsing. The death count was already in the millions and still climbing. Admiral Kim's hands shook as he gripped the railing. His wife had been in Seoul. His 2 children were at school there. He had tried calling them when the attack started. No answer, just static. He knew what that meant. He forced himself to breathe slowly. There would be time to grieve later. Right now, Earth needed him to think clearly. The command center buzzed with panicked voices. Officers shouted reports. Screens showed red everywhere, marking destroyed defenses and dead cities. Earth's orbital platforms had fallen within the first hour. The enemy ships were too many and too strong. Humanity's defenses were built for smaller threats, not a full invasion fleet. Captain Hyun-ji Park burst through the door. Her uniform was torn and her face was covered in dust. She had been in Seoul when the attack started and barely made it to the command center alive. She saluted quickly and spoke in a tight voice. Her ship, the Indomitable, was ready to fight. Her crew was angry and wanted revenge. Admiral Kim looked at her tired eyes and saw the same rage he felt burning inside himself. The communication systems crackled to life. A face appeared on the main screen. It was reptilian, with cold yellow eyes and scales that reflected the light. The creature spoke in broken human language, clearly translated by a machine. It called itself Commander Thorax of the Vraxian Empire. It said Earth belonged to them now. Humans would surrender or die. The choice was simple. Admiral Kim stared at the alien face. Commander Thorax was smiling. The creature thought this was already over. It thought humans would just give up. Kim felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, not even anger anymore. Something darker and more dangerous. He cut the transmission without saying a word. The other officers looked at him with wide eyes. What were his orders? Earth was burning. The enemy was too strong. Some of them were ready to surrender. They had families down there. They wanted to save who they could. Admiral Kim understood their fear. But he also understood something else. If they gave up now, humanity was finished. Not just killed, erased, forgotten, he would not allow that. He gave the order that shocked everyone in the room. All human forces would retreat. Every ship, every station, everything beyond Mars' orbit. They would abandon Earth completely. Officers protested. They could not just leave. There were still billions of people down there. Admiral Kim's voice cut through the noise like a knife. This was not abandonment. This was strategy. The Vraxians thought they had won. Let them think that. Let them get comfortable. Then humanity would show them what a real war looked like. Captain Park understood first. Her eyes went wide and then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. She saluted again and ran to prepare her ship. The other officers slowly began to understand. They were not running away. They were getting ready. Admiral Kim watched the screens as human ships began moving away from Earth. The Vraxian fleet did not chase them, just as he expected. The aliens thought they had already won. At the Lunar Research Station, Dr. Taeyang Choi received the retreat order. He was a thin man with messy hair and eyes that never stopped moving. He had been working on a secret project for 2 years, a weapon so powerful that the military thought it was too dangerous to use. Now Admiral Kim was asking him if it was ready. Dr. Choi looked at his calculations one more time. The weapon could work. It could also blow up and kill everyone, but doing nothing guaranteed death anyway. He sent back a single word. Yes, Lieutenant Ji-won Han sat in her fighter cockpit and watched Earth shrink in her display. She was young, only 23, but already the best pilot in the fleet. Her hands tightened on the controls. She had grown up on Mars and always thought Earth looked beautiful from space. Now it looked like a dying ember. The Vraxian ships covered it like insects. She wanted to turn around and attack them all by herself, but she followed orders. She would get her chance soon enough. On the battle carrier Titan, engineer Sang-Mi Lee worked through the night. She was older than most of the crew and had seen more than she wanted to. She knew ships. She knew how to fix them and how to make them stronger. Admiral Kim had sent her a private message. Get the Titan ready for a long fight. Make it survive anything. She looked at her tools and got to work. Her crew would live through what was coming. She would make sure of it. The Vraxian forces landed on Earth. Commander Thorax stood in what used to be Seoul and breathed in the smoke. Victory had been easy. Too easy, perhaps, but he did not care. Humans were weak, primitive, their weapons were toys. Their ships were slow. Taking Earth had been like taking candy from a child. Now his forces would strip the planet of everything useful and move on to the next conquest. The Vraxian Empire would grow stronger. Humanity would become a footnote in galactic history. What Commander Thorax did not know was that humanity remembered everything. Every conquered species in galactic history had fought the same way. Big fleets, frontal attacks, honorable battles. Humans did not care about honor. They cared about winning, and they had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war against each other. Now they would use every dirty trick, every brutal tactic, every weapon they had ever invented. All of it focused on one goal. At Mars orbit, the human fleet gathered. Hundreds of ships from Earth, the colonies, the mining stations. Some were military vessels. Others were cargo ships with weapons strapped to their hulls. Miners, traders, civilians who refused to run. They all came together. Admiral Kim looked at the fleet and felt something he had not felt since the attack started. Hope. Not hope that they would survive. Hope that they would win. He opened a channel to every ship. His face appeared on thousands of screens. He did not give an inspiring speech. He did not promise victory. He simply told them the truth. Earth was not lost. It was bait. The Vraxians had walked into a trap and did not even know it. Now humanity would spring that trap. The enemy thought humans were weak and scared. They would learn the truth. Humans were the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, and they were very, very angry. The fleet began moving. Not back to Earth, not yet. First they would hit the Vraxian supply lines, then their scout ships, then their reinforcements. Admiral Kim would cut off every escape route. When the Vraxians finally realized they were in danger, it would be too late. They would be surrounded, outnumbered, fighting an enemy that knew this solar system better than they did, fighting an enemy that did not take prisoners. Captain Park guided the Indomitable through the darkness. Her ship was small and fast and invisible to most sensors. She had handpicked her crew. Every one of them had lost someone in the attack. They were not looking for justice. They were looking for blood. She checked her weapons one last time and smiled that predator smile again. The hunt was beginning. On Earth, Commander Thorax celebrated his victory. His officers drank and boasted about how easy it had been. They mocked the humans who had run away. They planned which planet to attack next. None of them noticed the human ships moving into position around the solar system. None of them saw the trap closing. They would notice soon enough. And by then it would be far too late. Admiral Daewon Kim stood alone in his quarters. He looked at a photo of his family. His wife's smile. His children's laughter, all gone now, turned to ash by an enemy that thought humans were nothing. He set the photo down gently and walked back to the command center. He had work to do, a war to win, and a message to send to the galaxy. A message written in fire and blood. Humanity would not forgive. Humanity would not forget.
And humanity would not lose.
The asteroid belt was dark and cold and perfect for an ambush. Captain Hyunji Park watched her displays as 3 Vraxian scout ships moved through the rocks. They were hunting for the human fleet. They would not find it. Instead, they would find something much worse. She gave the signal with a simple hand gesture. Her crew knew what to do. They had practiced this 100 times. The Indomitable was a stealth frigate, designed to be invisible. Its hull absorbed sensor waves. Its engines ran cold. To the Vraxians, it looked like just another piece of space rock floating in the belt. Captain Park had positioned 5 other ships the same way. They surrounded the enemy scouts like wolves around prey. She counted down silently. 3, 2, 1, fire. Light filled the darkness. 6 human ships opened fire at once from 6 different directions. The Vraxian scouts never had a chance. Their shields flared and died. Their hulls cracked open. Explosions bloomed in the vacuum. It was over in 30 seconds. Captain Park allowed herself a small smile. First blood, but this was just the beginning. The human ships did not stay to celebrate. They moved deeper into the belt and went silent again. More Vraxian scouts would come looking, and they would die the same way. Admiral Kim's plan was simple. Make the enemy blind, kill their scouts, destroy their supply ships, force them to pull back their forces from Earth to protect their own fleet. It was working better than anyone expected. At Mars orbit, the main human fleet prepared for battle. The ships were ready. The crews were ready. But Admiral Daewon Kim wanted one more advantage. He called Dr. Tae-Young Choi to the command center. The scientist arrived looking tired but excited. He carried a data pad filled with equations that made no sense to anyone but him. He said his weapon was ready. Kim asked if it would work. Dr. Choi shrugged. Only one way to find out. The weapon was called the Graviton Disruptor. It used gravity itself as a weapon. By creating a sudden collapse in space-time, it could crush a ship into nothing. The theory was solid. Dr. Choi had tested it on small scales. But firing it at full power against a real target was different. It might destroy the enemy. It might destroy itself. It might open a black hole and kill everyone in the system. Dr. Choi admitted all of this with a straight face. Admiral Kim approved it anyway. They needed every advantage. Lieutenant Ji-won Han waited in her fighter. The X-90 interceptor was fast and deadly, and connected directly to her brain through a neural interface. When she thought about turning, the ship turned. When she wanted to fire, the weapons fired. It made her the most dangerous pilot in the fleet. She was not the most experienced. She was not the oldest. But she was the fastest. And in a dogfight, speed meant life. The call came through. Vraxian ships detected. A large force moving through the belt to investigate the missing scouts. This was the real battle. Not a small ambush, but a full fleet engagement. Han felt her heart beat faster. She had been waiting for this. Her hands moved over the controls. Her fighter came alive. Around her, 200 other fighters launched from their carriers. They formed up in attack formation and moved toward the enemy. The Vraxian fleet was impressive. 30 warships, each one bigger than anything humanity had built. Their hulls were thick armor. Their weapons could tear through a planet. They moved in tight formation like a hammer ready to smash anything in their path. The Vraxian commander probably felt confident. His fleet was strong. The humans were scattered and weak. An easy fight. Admiral Kim watched from the Titan. The massive battle carrier was the pride of the human fleet. Engineer Sang-Mi Lee had spent 3 days modifying it. Extra armor on critical systems, backup power for everything, redundant controls in case the main bridge was destroyed. She had turned it into a fortress that could keep fighting even when it should be dead. Kim trusted her completely. He would need that trust today. The human fleet came out of hiding. 100 ships against 30. It should have been an easy human victory by numbers alone, but the Vraxian ships were so much larger. Each one could probably take on 5 human vessels. The Vraxians knew this. They charged forward confidently. They wanted to crush this human resistance quickly and get back to looting Earth. They still thought this was an easy war. Lieutenant Han dove into the enemy formation. Her fighter screamed between the massive warships, too small and fast for their main guns to track. She fired missiles at their engine ports and weapon clusters, small targets that could cripple big ships. Other fighters followed her lead. They swarmed the Vraxian vessels like angry wasps. The enemy tried to swat them away, but the humans were too quick, too aggressive, too fearless. One of the Vraxian dreadnoughts turned its main cannon toward the Titan. The weapon charged with a sound that crossed the vacuum through vibration alone. It could blow a hole through a moon. Admiral Kim did not flinch. He ordered Engineer Lee to redirect all power to forward shields. She did it in 3 seconds flat. The enemy fired. The blast hit the Titan's shields like the fist of an angry god. The ship shook. Lights flickered, but the shields held. Barely. Then it was humanity's turn. Dr. Choi's weapon sat in a modified cargo ship at the back of the fleet. It looked harmless, just a collection of machinery and power coils. Dr. Choi aimed it carefully at the same dreadnought that had fired on the Titan. He checked his calculations one more time. Then he pressed the button and prayed to any gods that might be listening. Space itself seemed to twist. The Graviton Disruptor fired a beam that bent light around it. Where it hit the dreadnought, reality broke. The massive ship began to crumple, not like metal being crushed, like space was folding in on itself. The dreadnought compressed smaller and smaller until it was just a point of infinite density. Then it was gone. Completely. No explosion, no debris. Just gone. Both fleets stopped fighting for a moment. Everyone stared at the empty space where a kilometer-long warship had been. The Vraxians felt fear for the first time. The humans felt triumph. Dr. Choi checked his sensors. The weapon had worked. It had not destroyed half the solar system. He marked that as a win. Admiral Kim ordered him to reload and pick another target. The Vraxian fleet tried to retreat. They had come here expecting to crush a weak enemy. Instead, they found advanced weapons and tactics they had never seen before. Their commander sent a distress call back to Earth. They needed reinforcements. They needed help. But it would take time for that help to arrive. Time they did not have. Captain Park's stealth ships appeared behind the retreating Vraxians. She had been waiting for this moment. The enemy was running scared with their backs exposed. She ordered her squadron to target their engines. Disable them. Trap them here. The Vraxian ships that had come to hunt humans were now the ones being hunted. The predator had become the prey. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was brutal and desperate and nothing like the Vraxians expected.
They lost 18 ships.
The humans lost 23. But human ships were smaller and had smaller crews. The Vraxians lost 30,000 soldiers. Humanity lost 5,000. The math was clear. Humans were winning through better tactics and sheer determination. Engineer Lee collapsed in her chair when the fighting ended. She had kept the Titan alive through impossible damage, hull breaches, power failures, weapons overheating. She had fixed everything as it broke. Her crew called her a miracle worker. She just called it doing her job. But her hands were shaking and she could not stop them. She had saved hundreds of lives today. The weight of that was heavy. Lieutenant Han returned to the Titan with 3 kills marked on her fighter. 3 Vraxian ships destroyed by her alone. Other pilots had similar scores. The enemy had learned that human fighters were not weak targets. They were deadly, fast and small, and piloted by people who fought like they had nothing to lose. Because they did not. Earth was burning. There was no home to return to. Only victory or death. Admiral Kim broadcast a message on all frequencies. He made sure the Vraxians on Earth could hear it. He made sure the Galactic Federation could hear it. He spoke clearly and calmly. Humanity did not start this war, but humanity would finish it. Any species that attacked Earth would face total destruction. There would be no mercy, no forgiveness, only consequences. Across the galaxy, other species listened to the message. They watched recordings of the battle. They saw the graviton disruptor erase a dreadnought. They saw human fighters tear through superior ships. They saw a primitive species reveal weapons and tactics that shocked even the oldest civilizations. The Federation had called humans weak. They were very, very wrong. On Earth, Commander Thorax received the news. His fleet had been cut in half. His scouts were all dead. His supply lines were under attack. And the humans he thought were running away were actually setting a trap. He felt something he had not felt in a long career of conquest. Real fear. Not fear of losing the battle. Fear of losing everything. He sent a message to the Vraxian homeworld. He asked for more ships. More soldiers. More weapons. He said humanity was far more dangerous than intelligence reports suggested. He said they needed to take this threat seriously. The response came back quickly. His superiors laughed at him. Humans were primitives. He was just scared. Win the war or be replaced. Commander Thorax looked at his remaining fleet and knew the truth. He was already beaten. He just did not know it yet. The human. The ruins of Seoul still smoked when Captain Hyun-ji Park landed her dropship in the streets. She had brought 50 soldiers with her. All of them were volunteers. All of them had lost someone in the attack. They knew this mission was dangerous. They did not care. This was their city, and they were taking it back. The Vraxian occupation forces had made a mistake. They treated Earth like it was already conquered. They spread out to search for resources and survivors. They did not expect resistance. Human resistance forces had been hiding in the rubble for weeks, waiting, learning, planning. Now Captain Park was here to coordinate them, to turn scattered fighters into an army. The first Vraxian patrol died quietly. Human soldiers dropped from broken buildings and struck from behind, blades instead of guns, silent kills. The aliens never got a chance to call for help. Captain Park watched from a rooftop and nodded. Good. The enemy was overconfident. That would be their downfall. Lieutenant Jiwan Han flew cover above the city. Her fighter screamed through the sky at low altitude. The Vraxians tried to shoot her down, but she was too fast. She targeted their anti-aircraft positions with precision missiles. Every shot counted. Every target destroyed meant human soldiers below were safer. She had flown 12 missions in the last 2 days. She would fly 12 more if she had to. In space above Earth, Admiral Daewon Kim coordinated 3 different assaults at once. Seoul was just one target. His forces were hitting Tokyo, New York, and London at the same time. The Vraxian fleet in orbit was stretched thin, trying to support their ground troops everywhere. This was exactly what Kim wanted. Divide their attention. Hit them from multiple directions. Never let them rest. The Titan fired its main cannons at Vraxian positions from orbit. Engineer Sang-Mi Lee had modified the targeting systems to be more accurate. She could hit a building without destroying the ones next to it. This mattered when human civilians were hiding everywhere. Every shot had to be perfect. Lee made sure they were. Commander Thorax watched his perfect conquest falling apart. His forces on Earth were under attack from all sides. Human fighters that should have been dead were coming out of the ruins. His fleet in space was getting picked apart by hit-and-run attacks. His supply ships kept disappearing, and now Admiral Kim was demanding his surrender. Thorax refused. The Vraxian Empire did not surrender, ever, but Admiral Kim was not asking. He was informing. Human forces were about to launch their final assault on Earth. Every Vraxian on the planet would die unless Thorax withdrew immediately. The commander laughed. Empty threats from a dying species. Then his sensors detected what was coming. 200 human ships dropping from orbit. Thousands of dropships. Tens of thousands of soldiers. An invasion force. Coming for him. The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. It was not elegant or clean. It was brutal urban warfare. House to house. Street to street. Humans fighting to reclaim their home with everything they had. The Vraxians tried to hold their positions, but they were not trained for this. They were conquerors who crushed weak enemies. They did not know how to fight someone who refused to quit. Captain Park led her soldiers through the subway tunnels beneath Seoul. The Vraxians had set up a command post in an old shopping mall. She would take it. Her team moved silently through the darkness. They had turned off their radios. Hand signals only. When they reached the Vraxian position, they struck without warning. Grenades, gunfire, chaos. The aliens never knew what hit them. Above the city, Lieutenant Han fought 6 enemy fighters at once. They were trying to stop human dropships from landing reinforcements. She would not let them. Her X-90 danced through the air. She fired missiles and cannons. 2 enemy fighters exploded. 3 more damaged. The last one tried to run. She chased it down and finished it. No mercy, no quarter. This was her sky. When Seoul was finally clear, Captain Park stood in the ruins and looked around. So much destruction, so many dead. But the Vraxian flag that had been flying over the city was gone. The human flag was back. People emerged from hiding. They cried and cheered and thanked the soldiers. Park felt tears on her face, but she did not wipe them away. They had earned this moment. All of them Admiral Kim did not celebrate. Earth was free, but the war was not over. Commander Thorax had retreated to his fleet in orbit. He still had ships, still had weapons, still had the ability to glass the planet from space. Kim needed to end this threat permanently. That meant taking the fight to the enemy homeworld. The Vraxian Empire needed to understand. You do not attack humanity without consequences. The human fleet gathered for the longest jump they had ever attempted. Vraxia Prime was weeks away at full speed. Dr. Tai Yang Choi had been working on a solution. By using captured Vraxian technology, he had upgraded human jump drives. Now they could travel much faster. The trip would only take days, and they would arrive with every weapon ready. Captain Park was given command of the ground assault forces. If they needed to invade Vraxia Prime, she would lead the troops. She accepted the assignment without hesitation. Her soldiers trusted her. She had brought them through hell and back. They would follow her anywhere. Even to an alien homeworld where they would be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The fleet jumped. Space twisted around them as the drives pushed them faster than light. It was not a comfortable journey. The ships shook. Systems strained. Some people got sick, but it worked. When they emerged from the jump, they were in Vraxian space. And directly ahead was their target, Vraxia Prime. A desert world covered in cities and military bases. The heart of an empire that thought it was invincible. The Vraxian home fleet was massive. 500 warships defending their most important world. They had been warned humans were coming, but they did not believe it. How could a primitive species attack the Vraxian homeworld? It was impossible. Their sensors proved them wrong. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system. Smaller, fewer ships, but coming straight toward them without fear. Commander Thorax had made it back to Vraxia Prime. He tried to warn his superiors. Humans were dangerous. They had advanced weapons. They fought with tactics the Vraxians could not counter. His warnings were ignored. He was called a coward. They would show him how a real fleet dealt with primitives. They charged forward to crush the human fleet. All 500 ships. It should have been overwhelming. Admiral Kim watched them come. He had planned for this. He had studied every recording of Vraxian tactics. They always fought the same way. Massive formations. Overwhelming firepower. No subtlety. No tricks. Just pure strength. Humans did not fight that way. He gave the order.
Split the fleet.
Surround them. Make them fight in all directions at once. The human ships scattered like seeds in the wind. The Vraxian fleet tried to follow, but they were too slow. Too rigid. By the time they turned to chase one group of human ships, another group was attacking from behind. It was chaos. Beautiful, deadly chaos. And in the middle of it all was the Titan, with Admiral Kim coordinating everything. Engineer Lee kept the Titan fighting through damage that should have destroyed it. Power conduits melted. Hull plates cracked. Weapons overheated. She rerouted everything. Kept every critical system running. Her crew moved like a machine. They trusted her completely. When she said the ship would survive, they believed her. And because they believed, it was true. Dr. Choi fired the graviton disruptor 7 times during the battle. 7 Vraxian capital ships simply ceased to exist. Each shot made the enemy more afraid. They started to break formation. Started to run. Not all of them. Just a few at first, then more. Then entire squadrons. Fear was spreading through the Vraxian fleet like disease. They were supposed to be the hunters. Instead, they were being slaughtered. Lieutenant Han led the fighter screen. Her squadron destroyed enemy bombers before they could reach human capital ships. She was everywhere at once. Every time the Vraxians thought they had an opening, she was there to close it. Her pilots called her untouchable. The enemy called her the Ghost. She did not care about names. She cared about killing enemy ships. Commander Thorax watched his homeworld's fleet die. He had tried to warn them. They had not listened. Now they were paying the price. His flagship was damaged and surrounded. Human ships were closing in. He could surrender, or he could die fighting. The choice should have been easy for a Vraxian warrior. But he was tired and scared, and he knew the truth. The Vraxian Empire had made a terrible mistake. Captain Park's voice came over his communication system. She was leading a boarding party to his ship. She was coming for him personally. Thorax remembered her face from intelligence reports. She had lost family and soul. She blamed him. He had minutes at most. He tried to send a final message to his homeworld, a warning to never underestimate humanity again. The transmission was cut off. The humans had breached his ship. The corridors of the flagship were dark. Emergency lights flickered. Captain Park moved through them like death itself. Her soldiers cleared each room, each corridor. They found Vraxian crew members hiding, surrendering. She ignored them. She wanted the commander. She found him on the bridge, alone, waiting. Thorax looked at her and saw his death. He asked for mercy. He said he was just following orders. He said the invasion was not his idea. Captain Park remembered Seoul, remembered the fire, remembered millions of dead humans. Earth was quiet for the first time in months. The fires had been put out. The rubble was being cleared. But the scars remained. Admiral Daewon Kim walked through what used to be Seoul and saw ghosts everywhere. His wife had died here. His children had died here. Millions had died here. Victory felt hollow when the cost was so high. Memorial sites were being built in every city that had burned. Names carved into stone. Millions of names. People stopped to read them and remember. Kim stopped at one memorial and found his family's names. He touched the cold stone and allowed himself to cry. Just once, just for a moment. Then he wiped his tears and walked away. There was still work to do. Captain Hyun-Ji Park stood at the academy she now commanded. The Earth Defense Academy would train the next generation of warriors. She had been asked to lead it because she understood what war really cost. Not just ships and resources, lives, souls. She would make sure every cadet understood that. War was sometimes necessary, but it was never glorious. Her first speech to the new cadets was simple. She told them about soul, about fighting through the streets, about killing enemy soldiers and watching friends die. She did not make it sound heroic. She made it sound like what it was, horror, but necessary horror. When she finished, the room was silent. Some cadets were crying. Good. They needed to understand what they were signing up for. Lieutenant Ji-Wan Han became the face of the Earth Defense Force recruiting campaign. Her image was on posters everywhere. The young pilot who had fought impossible odds and survived. Recruiting stations saw record numbers. Young people wanted to be like her. Wanted to defend Earth. Wanted to make sure nothing like the Vraxian invasion ever happened again. Han found the attention uncomfortable but accepted it. If her fame helped protect Earth, it was worth it. The Galactic Federation finally reached out to humanity. They sent ambassadors to Earth with apologies and offers of friendship. They claimed they had not known the Vraxians would attack. They said they would have helped if they could. Admiral Kim listened to their excuses with a cold expression. He did not believe them, but he understood politics. Humanity needed allies now. Enemies could wait. Ambassador Kyung Soo-yoon was chosen to represent humanity at the Federation Council. He was a diplomat who understood power. Before the war, the Federation had treated humanity like primitive children. Now they treated humans like equals, not out of respect, out of fear. They had watched humans destroy the Vraxian Empire in months. They knew humanity could do the same to them. Yoon's first speech at the Federation was famous. He stood before hundreds of alien species and spoke calmly. Humanity did not seek conquest. Humanity did not want war. But humanity would never again be victims. Any species that threatened Earth would face total destruction. There would be no warnings, no second chances, just consequences. The chamber was silent when he finished. Everyone understood. The age of underestimating humans was over. Dr. Tae-Yang Choi received offers from every major institution in the galaxy. They wanted him to share his weapons technology. They wanted to hire him. They wanted to make him rich beyond measure. He refused everything. Instead, he established the Luna Institute on Earth's moon. It would study defensive technologies, weapons that protected rather than conquered. His motto was simple: peace through strength. The graviton disruptor technology was carefully shared with a few trusted allied species. Dr. Choi made sure every species that received it understood the responsibility. This weapon could destroy planets. Using it carelessly would make them no better than the Vraxians. Several species asked for the technology and were denied. They were not mature enough, not stable enough, not trustworthy enough. Engineer Sang-Mi Lee received the Titan's Medal of Valor, the highest honor Earth could give. She stood on stage while thousands cheered. She felt embarrassed. She had just done her job, kept her ship running, kept her crew alive. But when she saw the other engineers in the crowd, she understood. She was a symbol. Proof that the people in the background mattered as much as the heroes in front. Lee used her fame to start a program called Engineers Without Borders. She would travel to worlds devastated by war or disaster and help rebuild. Her teams became famous across the galaxy. They could fix anything, build anything, and they asked for nothing in return except the chance to help. It was humanity's way of showing they could create as well as destroy. The Vraxian question was difficult. Their empire had surrendered, but their people remained. Billions of them. What should humanity do with them? Some wanted revenge, wanted to occupy their worlds, make them suffer. Admiral Kim understood the anger, but he also understood history. Revenge created future enemies. He chose a different path. The Vraxian military was completely dismantled. Every warship was destroyed or taken by humanity. Their weapons factories were shut down. But their people were allowed to live, to rebuild, under supervision. Human observers would remain on Vraxia Prime for a generation, maybe two, long enough to make sure the Vraxians learned their lesson, long enough for a new generation to grow up knowing that conquest was not the answer. Some Vraxians accepted this. They were tired of war, tired of losing their children to pointless conquests. They worked with the human observers. learned from them, built a new culture based on cooperation instead of domination. But others resented the occupation. They saw it as humiliation. They whispered about revenge, about the day they would be strong enough to strike back. Admiral Kim knew these whispers existed. He made sure his intelligence services watched them carefully. Captain Park visited Vraxia Prime once. She walked through their cities and saw Vraxian children playing in the streets. They looked at her with fear. She was the human who killed Commander Thorax, the enemy who destroyed their empire. She wondered if one of these children would grow up to hate her. To try to kill her, maybe, probably, but they would grow up. That mattered. The Galactic Federation tried to pressure humanity to be more lenient with the Vraxians. They said the occupation was too harsh, too controlling. Ambassador Yoon listened to their complaints politely. Then he asked a simple question. How many of their worlds had been attacked by the Vraxians? How many of their people had died? The answer was millions. The Federation had failed to stop the Vraxians for centuries. Humanity stopped them in months. The Federation dropped their complaints. Earth's technology advanced rapidly. Integrating alien science with human innovation created breakthroughs nobody expected. Faster ships, better weapons, medical advances that saved countless lives. Dr. Choi worked with scientists from dozens of species. They shared knowledge freely. Well, mostly freely. Some technologies were too dangerous to share. The graviton disruptor remained humanity's secret. Their guarantee that nobody would attack Earth again. Admiral Kim retired 5 years after the war ended. He was tired, old, ready to rest. His final speech was delivered to the entire Earth Defense Force. He reminded them why they fought. Not for glory, not for conquest. For protection. Earth must never burn again. The audience stood and saluted. Every person in that room would die before they let Earth fall. Kim knew this. It was his greatest achievement. Lieutenant Han, now a Commodore, took command of the Vanguard Squadron, the elite fighter group that defended Earth's orbital space. Her pilots were the best in the galaxy. Trained in tactics that blended human aggression with alien precision, other species sent pilots to train with them. Most washed out. They could not match the intensity, could not match the dedication. Humans fought like their lives depended on every mission. Because they did, the Titan was rebuilt and upgraded. Engineer Lee designed the improvements herself. The ship that had survived impossible battles became even stronger. It carried more weapons, more armor, more advanced systems. But its real strength was its crew. They had fought at Vraxia Prime. They had seen the worst war could offer. They would never break, never surrender, never quit. Humanity established new colonies throughout the solar system. Not just Mars and the Moon, Europa, Titan, the asteroid belt. Every resource was used. Every advantage was taken. Earth would never again be humanity's only home. If it burned, humans would survive. They had learned that lesson in blood. They would not forget it. The memorial beacons were established around the solar system. They broadcast constantly. A message in every known language. A warning to the galaxy. Earth had been attacked. Earth had survived. Earth had won. Attack humanity at your own risk. The cost would be total. The response would be fierce. And there would be no mercy. 10 years after the war, Earth held a day of remembrance. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They listened to the names of the dead. All of them. It took 24 hours to read them all. People stood in silence and remembered. Remembered the cost. Remembered why they could never let their guard down. Remembered that peace was precious because they had paid for it with blood. Admiral Kim, now truly retired, sat in his home and watched the ceremony on television. He was old now, gray-haired and tired, but he smiled. Earth was safe. Humanity was strong. His family had not died for nothing. Their sacrifice had bought time for others to live, to grow, to build something better. He closed his eyes and finally allowed himself to rest. His war was over. But humanity's war was never truly over. In the depths of space of the eye. 20 years had passed since the Vraxian invasion. Earth looked different now. The cities had been rebuilt, bigger, stronger, more beautiful than before. But the memorials remained. Nobody wanted to forget what happened. Forget the cost. Forget why humanity could never be weak again. Captain Hyunji Park was no longer a captain. She was now Admiral Park, commander of the First Contact Fleet, a special force designed for exploration and diplomacy. But everyone knew the truth. Her fleet was ready for war at a moment's notice. Every ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small armada. Diplomacy was always backed by strength. That was the human way now. The First Contact Fleet had discovered 3 new species in the last 5 years. Each meeting followed the same protocol. Friendly greetings, cultural exchange, trade negotiations, and a very clear demonstration of human military capabilities, just to make sure everyone understood. Humanity came in peace. But humanity was prepared for war. Always prepared. One species had tried to test human resolve. They were called the Keltar, aggressive traders who thought they could bully humans into bad deals. They sent warships to intimidate human colony ships. Admiral Park responded by destroying 3 Keltar vessels in under 10 minutes. Then she offered negotiations. The Keltar suddenly became very polite, very cooperative, very careful never to threaten humanity again. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity. Some species admired humans. Others feared them. Many did both. Earth had become a major power in galactic politics. Not through conquest, through proven strength. Every species knew what humanity could do. They had all watched the recordings of the Vraxian War. Nobody wanted to be next. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Yoon had spent 2 decades building alliances. He was old now, but still sharp. Still careful. He negotiated trade deals, technology exchanges, defense pacts. Earth was no longer isolated. Humanity had friends across the galaxy, but Yoon made sure every agreement was fair. Nobody took advantage of humans. Not anymore. Not ever again. The Luna Accords had become galactic law. Dr. Taeyang Choi had written them himself. Rules for advanced weapons, restrictions on planet killers, guidelines for warfare. Many species complained the rules favored humanity. Dr. Choi agreed. Of course they did. Humanity had earned that privilege. When other species could match human technology, they could help write the rules. Until then, they would follow them. The Luna Institute had grown into the premier research facility in the galaxy. Scientists from hundreds of species worked there. They developed new technologies, better medicines, cleaner energy, and yes, better weapons. Dr. Choi believed in peace, but he understood reality. Peace only lasted as long as potential enemies feared the cost of war. Humanity would make sure that cost stayed very high. Commodore Ji-Won Han led the Vanguard Squadron on their 100th mission. She was older now. 30 years of flying had left their mark, but she was still the best, still the fastest, still the pilot everyone else measured themselves against. Her students had spread across the galaxy, teaching other species how humans fought, how humans thought, how humans won. The Interspecies Fighter Exchange Program was famous. Pilots came from everywhere to train with humans. Most failed. The training was too hard, too intense, too demanding. But those who graduated were changed. They fought with human tactics, human aggression, human determination. They became legends in their own militaries, and they all respected humanity, feared it a little, but respected it completely. Engineer Sang-Mi Lee had designed the new Titan-class carriers. 7 of them now protected human space. Each one was a mobile fortress. Each one could fight an entire enemy fleet alone. But they were designed for defense, not conquest. Lee had made sure of that. She built weapons to protect, to preserve, never to destroy for the sake of destruction. Her Engineers Without Borders program had helped rebuild dozens of worlds, war zones, disaster areas, anywhere people needed help. Lee went personally to each one. She was old now, but she refused to retire. There was too much work to do, too many people to help. She would rest when she was dead. Until then, she had a job to do. The Vraxian Empire was a shadow of its former self. Their military was gone. Their conquests had been freed, but their people survived. A new generation had grown up under human supervision. These young Vraxians were different. They learned about cooperation, about peace, about the cost of war. Some of them even joined human institutions, worked alongside the species their parents had tried to conquer. Not all Vraxians accepted the new way. There were still those who remembered the Empire, who wanted revenge. Human intelligence services watched them carefully, stopped several plots before they could begin. Each time a conspiracy was uncovered, the conspirators were given a choice: abandon their plans and live, or continue and face justice. Most chose life. A few chose death. Their choice: Admiral Daewon Kim had died 5 years ago. His funeral was attended by millions. People from every human world, aliens from dozens of species. Even some Vraxians came to pay respects. He was buried on Earth and Sol, near the memorial that bore his family's names. His tombstone was simple: Admiral Daewon Kim. He saved humanity. He never asked for more, but his legacy lived on. The Earth Defense Force followed his principles: overwhelming preparation, decisive action, no mercy for enemies, complete protection for allies. Every officer studied his tactics. Every soldier learned his lessons. Kim had shown humanity how to survive in a hostile galaxy. They would not forget. Earth's colonies had spread beyond the solar system. Humans lived on 20 different worlds now. Some were paradise planets. Others were harsh mining colonies. But all of them were defended. All of them were connected. If one was attacked, all would respond. Humanity had learned that lesson. They would never be divided again. Never be weak again. Never be victims again. The Galactic Federation had changed too. Humanity's rise had forced reforms. The old powers could no longer dominate. New voices were heard. Weaker species found protection under human friendship. The Federation became more democratic, more fair. Not because the old powers wanted change. Because humanity demanded it. And what humanity demanded, humanity got. Ambassador Yoon retired after 25 years of service. His final speech to the Federation was memorable. He thanked them for accepting humanity, for working with Earth, for building a better galaxy together. Then he reminded them why they did it, not out of kindness, out of wisdom. Humanity was too dangerous to ignore, too powerful to oppose, too determined to defeat. Working together was the only option that made sense. The memorial beacon still broadcast. 20 years of constant transmission. Every ship that entered human space heard the message. Earth had been attacked. Earth had survived. Earth had won. The message was simple, but the meaning was clear. Humanity was here. Humanity was strong. And humanity would not tolerate threats. Ever. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the stars. So many worlds out there. So many species. So many potential friends. And potential enemies. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Not through diplomacy. Not through trade. Through war. Through proving they could not be conquered. Could not be intimidated. Could not be stopped. She thought about Captain Park. The woman she used to be. Young and angry and looking for revenge. That woman had killed Commander Thorax, had led soldiers through hell, had fought in the ruins of Sol. Park was different now, older, calmer, but no less determined. She would protect humanity, train the next generation, make sure Earth never burned again. Dr. Choi worked in his lab on the moon. New projects, new weapons, new defenses. He was old, but his mind was still sharp, still creating, still pushing boundaries. His students asked him why he kept working. He had earned his rest. He smiled and told them the truth. Rest was for the dead. The living had work to do. Humanity had to stay ahead, stay strong, stay ready. Commodore Han flew her last mission. She was retiring after 30 years of service. Her fighter performed perfectly. One last dance through the stars, one last patrol around Earth. When she landed, thousands cheered. She had inspired a generation of pilots, had proven what humans could do. She smiled and waved. Then she walked away from her fighter. Her war was over, but humanity's war never ended. Engineer Lee looked at the newest Titan-class carrier. It was beautiful, powerful, perfect. She had designed it herself, her last project before retirement. She ran her hand along the hull and felt pride. This ship would protect humanity for decades, would carry on the legacy of the original Titan, would remind the galaxy that humanity could build as well as destroy. Earth celebrated the 20th anniversary of victory. The cities were packed. People danced in the streets. They remembered the dead with respect, but they celebrated the living with joy. Humanity had survived, had thrived, had become something great. The Vraxians had thought they were attacking a weak species. They had awakened a sleeping giant. In schools across Earth and the colonies, children learned about the Vraxian War. They learned about Admiral Kim, about Captain Park, about Dr. Choi and Lieutenant Han and Engineer Lee. They learned about courage, about sacrifice, about the price of freedom. And they learned the most important lesson: humanity must never be weak again, must never let their guard down, must never forget. The galaxy was different now. Humans were everywhere,